All right. So I'll just put this on. Whoops, that just changed the view. Welcome everyone to Realtor Power Hour. My name is Christy Kraus. I'm a settlement agent as well as the Director of Business Development for Universal Title Falls Church. I started Realtor Power Hour back in November. My vision was to bring trainings to real estate agents that I work with in the DMV to help them grow their business. So the topics, a lot of times I've heard things from the agents that I'm meeting with, and one of the things that came up was the interest of working with investment properties. And so I'm so grateful to have a great guest speaker today, John Partridge. He is with Honeydew today. He also runs the Alexander Real Estate Association, and he has personal experience with flips and investment properties. So I'm going to turn it over to him. I am letting you guys know that we are recording this, and I will be putting this up on our Universal Title Falls Church YouTube channel. So anyone will be able to look back on this and get the information. And then we're also going to send a follow-up email with John's contact information as well as mine. If there's any questions you guys have, we're just super grateful to have you here today. We definitely want this to be a place where you feel comfortable to ask questions. This is for everyone to kind of like learn from. And so if you have a question, you can either do the raise your hand thing, or you can put it in the chat and we'll make sure that we answer that for you. So with further ado, my guest speaker, John Partridge, thank you so much again, and I'll let you take the floor.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you to Universal Title for doing this. I appreciate it, and I've been a real estate investor and in the business for about over 30 years now, and the real estate investment community are my people, and anytime we can come together and talk real estate investment and dirt, I love it. It's especially around this area because I do think that the real estate investment community is what really keeps the neighborhoods vibrant. It improves the tax base. It stops urban blight. It keeps our schools strong, and it's something to remember. The people that are out there doing it, that are turning underutilized properties into people, homes and small commercial buildings where the tax base can thrive, communities can thrive. I'm all in for that. What I wanted to do today, very quickly, is go over a few points. We've got a pretty experienced audience here, and go over some things that maybe you haven't thought about, maybe you need to be reminded. Before we started recording and started the presentation, we were talking a little bit. I think a lot of people will agree we're about to go through, we already are going through a very nice a very good investment environment in the DMV. There's going to be a lot of opportunity. Investing can often be countercyclical. Just because the market might be going down doesn't mean investment is. There are going to be opportunities. And, so a lot of us, if we're not already involved in investment, we're going to be drawn to it. Maybe it's for the real estate agent who says, you know what, it's getting a little bit difficult to get the listings or to get the buyers because people are, for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're wedded to the 2% interest rate, or, that they already have on their current house, or the lack of inventory. When we could go through all the checklists of things, but they're going to look more to being an investor, or they're going to be representing investors. Real estate agents, they'll say, listen, I'm usually used to listing properties, or I'm used to taking, first-time home buyers or second stage home buyers or seniors out to look at properties, what have you. There are all kinds of different niches. And maybe they say, you know what, you're right, the investors are coming along, so I'm going to throw my hat in that ring. And I want to address kind of both of those things a little bit and touch on a few points people should consider. But in either case, the first thing to remember when you're dealing with investment properties is that you're in a different paradigm, you're in a different legal scheme. I've been doing this for 30 years, and if you're an investor who has been dealing with the residential purchase and going to the traditional, funding mechanisms for properties, you want to remember that when you're in the investment, that's kind of consumer protection. The government has a vested interest in making sure that transaction goes perfectly because it wants people in houses. But when you get into really investment, you're really stepping into the commercial phase, and different types of financing, different rules. The key one being, we're typically, when we're investment, we're not talking about owner occupied properties. And I get it. There are people that do second homes and things like that, and that's really, that is to some degree obviously a second home owner occupied. But when you start getting into things where it's not owner occupied, you're talking about forming LLCs. That's the traditional model, and different types of financing. You're talking about putting in cash. You're talking about moving quickly. You're talking about hard money and different things like that. And you have to realize, and we have a few attorneys on the call. David Whiting and a few others. The rules change. It's caveat emptor when you get into the commercial phase, when you get into residential. The rules change. You're not going to get truth in lending certificates or statements. There's really not a lot of regulation. The contracts are not going to be necessarily the standard real estate agent's contract that's issued by the board and allowed. It's going to involve some legal work. It's going to involve some developing some new documents. The title company you deal with is going to need to be a little bit more sophisticated. Shameless plug, I enjoy working with Christy and Universal Title. They've been around a while, and they know what they're talking about. But and again, everyone in your robo, when you're doing a commercial deal or an investment deal, is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little different, and you got to, be aware of that. The second thing that I'll say, and these are hard, fast rules. Violate them at your own peril. Argue with me, fight me afterwards. But you're going to get pitched, and again, when we go into business for ourselves, particularly a lot of the real estate agents, you make a bargain with yourself. And that's, yes, you're going to go sell a lot of properties and get a lot of people in homes, but there's no great pension for you, or there's no great pot of gold unless you make it happen. And so a lot of you, rightfully so, are going to get involved in investment properties. You need to own a few properties if you're going to do this as a career. You need to fix and flip a few properties. You need to invest, get involved with a bunch of different, again, niches and play. I call it, we have our playbook. I call it a different play, in your real estate practice. But the tendency is going to be, if you haven't got involved already, or if you want to jumpstart it, that you think you need to take the commission from the last, $1 million house you sold and roll it into somebody's boot camp, or, some type of big, education seminar. And I regularly see people for years now. They're paying 5, 10, 15,000 more. I mean, you get some crazy numbers. It's not uncommon to have somebody tell us, I spent 40 grand on training, um, you know, for real estate. Well, if you're going to go get your CPA, you're going to go to law school, or you're going to go get your MBA, maybe that's worth it. But my suggestion to you, there are resources out there. Number one, Bigger Pockets is a great one. Uh, I can put it in the chat, but you need to listen to those podcasts, read those books, watch those YouTube channels. The other thing is, in my experience, the real estate investment community is one of the most welcoming. And you know, go shadow a deal or two. Go get with some other investors. Go visit Christy and ask her. Learn a little bit how the title works and how the transaction works, and some of the mechanics, so that you know how it goes. All of that is largely free. I'm advocating, yes, spend $10, $20 to go buy that book at bigger, on the Bigger Pockets. There are all kinds of books out there at Amazon. Do that. Listen to get an account at Audible for $14 a month. but it saddens me when I hear, and it happens every day. Uh, and again, if it teaches you to do it, great. But more often than not, I hear the story of, yeah, I went and spent 20 grand and I never did a deal. And, you know, I went and took somebody's boot camp on something. And, just go to boot camps, do that stuff, but just don't pay for them. Don't pay that kind of money for that. Um, and again, people watch their HGTV and they get carried away with it, and it happens too often. And then the other key thing for the initial mindset that I'll say is you need to have some patience. The analogy I give is, if you ever been deep sea fishing, you've ever gone out on a boat into the ocean or a bay or a sound, uh, and you're out there fishing. The first time you go out, you may see the line bob a little bit. You'll think you have a fish. No, you don't have a fish. You'll know when you have a fish when the line gets pulled over to the water and the line starts running out. And the same is true for investment properties. And I'd urge you all, have some patience. You start getting into it, you take a course, maybe you read a few books, you're watching all your maybe people at your brokerage, it's for real estate agents, but you're watching maybe a friend or somebody in your neighborhood, somebody they just did a deal and you want to do a deal. And that's great. That is great. The problem is in real estate, and you got to keep this at the key thing. It's a key mindset is, if you jump too hard when you're first a real estate agent, maybe you waste a few weekends driving the wrong person around all day, or any type of the real estate field. You waste your time. That's the worst that happens. In real estate investment, you're dealing with big numbers, and often they're leverage numbers. You're getting a loan, you're doing something, you've got money riding on it. And leverage can make you a lot of money, but it can also drive you into the ground. So if you go out there and you're not patient, you don't get the deal that makes you jump through the roof and says, this is a great deal, I'm going to try and get this thing done, by hook or crook. Uh, you need to wait for the next deal. You get rich on the deals you do not do, the deals you pass by. Just say next, wait, get your marketing better, get your systems better, but don't jump at a deal thinking, oh, what's the worst case? It's going to be a loss leader. That may be true in other walks of life. You learn, you get educated, you get experience. But in real estate investment, it will be a very expensive and sometimes, you know, economically fatal for a period of time if you jump at the wrong deal, put money behind it because you just wanted to do a deal. And Krista and Camna, we call these leaps of faith. You got to narrow the leaps of faith in your deal. You got to have the ability to map it out from front to beginning. And too often I see investors, just I'll leave it at this. They don't narrow the leaps of faith, and they look at them and they say, "Oh, I can make that jump if this goes right and that goes right, and the dish runs away with the spoon. This is going to be a beautiful deal." That's not what you want in real estate investment. The deal's got to make sense. It makes sense from day one, and you know it when you see it.
John, could I ask a question?
Yeah, yeah,
So there is a few, I think, agents on here I know I've invited that they're looking to get into this. They might not have the experience. So, they have the mindset, they've done these podcasts and trainings. Where do they go to start looking for these types of properties that are like, would be a good potential for a flip? Do you look at like FISBOs? Like, what is your strategy that
sure,
you use?
sure. I have really I narrow it down to two things. You 1031 if I'm a real estate agent, I'm not, but if I were a real estate agent, I would narrow it down personally to people with money from 1031 exchanges that need to park the money. They need to buy something else because it's all about tax avoidance. And there's a whole world of real estate investment that is just tax driven, and I'm not going to go all into that right now. I'm happy to have further conversations. but there's a whole world realize out there about people that are investing in real estate to minimize taxes and avoid capital gains. And that's the 1031 exchange rule, which is in the Internal Revenue Code. And it puts time limits, for lack of, without getting in all the details. They have to buy a property fast. That's a good investor to work with. That's a great investor to work with. If you're a real estate agent and you can, get involved with some real estate investors or people that want to move fast for 1031 exchanges, again, that's a great thing to do because those people are ready, willing, and able buyers. They've got the money and they're very ready, very willing, and very able. So it's a great, they have to buy, or else they're going to end up spending a lot of money. It's the difference between capital gain tax and Section 61, regular income, or excuse me, tax avoidance and completely. You avoid the tax to begin with, so you're saving essentially 25% if you're the person making the purchase. So that's the motive behind what your client would be. So that's a great investor to work with if you're a real estate agent. The other thing though, and this is, I work with real estate agents who bring us properties that we do from time to time. And the biggest complaint I think that investors would have is a lot of times they bring you things that are on the multiple listing service. I'm not saying I haven't done deals that are listed, but 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, these are deals that go fast. The deals that we do, they go fast, and we get directly to the seller who wants cash fast. We buy distressed real estate, and sometimes we're talking about the real estate, but in all cases, we're talking about distressed sellers. And for whatever reason, you have to ask, why is somebody not selling at fair market value? And we can go through the decision tree of that. They need to move quickly. There's a whole class of people out there that don't want to deal with a real estate agent for whatever reason. The idea of having a shingle, a signpost in front of their yard, or somebody telling them that it would be in their best interest to, give the property a coat of paint and fix it up, and the idea of having a home inspection. Just trust me, there's a whole class of people out there, a universe of people that's more than they can bear. The idea that their neighbors will come through their house as when they haven't yet left it, and that's not for them. So it's getting directly to the sellers. Now, of course, one of the things that I'm often curious about, especially for people on this call, is investors that use real estate agents for those type of deals. Why would the real estate agent bring it to the investor, where after a little bit of education and experience, they could do the deal themselves? So I think, and I think most investors, most real estate agents, after they've seen and had a front row seat to a few deals, the idea that they're going to be representing investors or investment groups that they don't have an equity stake in is not really realistic. It happens because it's, sometimes for a variety of reasons. People, some real estate agents don't want to, you have to have some capital. You got to be able to do some things. But even then there are ways to partner up. So those are the two things I would say, Christy. It's either, for me, if you're an agent, represent the ready, willing, and able buyers. That means 1031, market to that, or always be on the lookout, BOLO, be on the lookout for the distressed situations, the house that won't sell, and the person that doesn't want the shingle in front of their house, the person that needs to move quickly. They've got to go. Something happened in their life, and it can be some horrible things. It can be indictment. It can be divorce. It can be death. It can be mental illness. It can be real job transfer. It can be divorce. It can, you name it. The
Yeah.
reasons in life where people need to move quickly.
Yeah.
So those were the two things
So
I'd focus.
what about for like if they are looking for hard money? So let's say like I know there's a handful on here that they want to get into this themselves and they're real estate agents. What do those types of resources look like for where do they go for hard money if they want to get into it? What do you look for in a property to know that it is distressed and that you have enough to flip it? That was another question.
Sure. Well, shameless plug again. We engage in hard money lending, and we've been doing that for quite a while. Uh, but there are a number of reputable hard money lenders. Uh, you know, hard money lenders, fall into the category of it's a type of venture capital. It runs outside the banks. It's completely unregulated because it's commercial. A hard money lender will not be lending money on owner occupied. It is never a solution for somebody to bootstrap their way into an owner occupied house. Most hard money lenders that know what they're doing, they're going to lend to an LLC and have it guaranteed by the people. And they're going to check very thoroughly to make sure that the person borrowing or the group borrowing has no intention of living in this house. And that's because it is big boy and girl stuff. If you don't pay, it's going to be foreclosed upon. It's an investment. The other thing, it's very expensive money. We borrow hard money on our deals from time to time, and sometimes if you have to ask the rate, it's not a good deal. But there are some good things, some very good things about working with a hard money lender. The first thing is if they're good, uh, if they don't want to fund your deal, it means they don't think you're going to make money, and you ought to take that pretty. You know, you ought to listen to your hard money lender and not go out and get the money from your Aunt Polly. Most of the venture capital for business or real estate in the world comes from what I like to say friends, family, and fools. Okay. And, uh, and then you have your hard money lender, and then you have your banks that are not lending right now. And then you have some deals where you have, and I see some, great mortgage brokers on here right now. They have great programs and we, like for instance, Colin Myers here. We use Colin for exit strategies and getting our money back and other things like that. We're getting into more complicated scenarios, but a lot of times one of the hallmarks of real estate is you got to move quick. I mean, somebody wants to sell. You find a distressed property, they want to move quickly, and Universal Title will turn the title for us very quickly. I mean,
We
you
can
guys get
do
it done quick.
we
Yeah.
can do as fast as 7 days. We could put a rush. And then as long as there's not huge title issues, that's not an issue at all. We close quite often for investment properties anywhere from 7 to 10 days. So
Yeah. And you guys are great about that. And then the hard money allows to do it. Where that's just, that's more, a traditional mortgage broker can't go that fast. And they also, the traditional programs don't want to see properties with uh, any type of hair on them. They don't want to see, necessarily their programs, but they take a little while. They take a lot of documentation. Uh, when you're dealing with investment property, there's not going to be any home inspections. And to that end, it's one of the traps. If you don't understand construction, you better have some people in your pocket that are going to come out and take a look with you. You have to have some people that know their stuff and can come out and do it for you like that. And you got to compensate them. They're not going to, when you call them, it better be to get the deal done, or, it can be your brother or whatever. But I'd suggest, you get somebody who can go, look through the property with you and understand what you're doing. I mean, Honeydew today, we can do all kinds of things, but we bring our people in, and we go through and we understand what we're getting into. We're not intimidated by a new roof or new systems or drywall or paint, but at the same time we want to know what we're getting into, and we what the prices are, and it takes time to develop that. um
So
you
I
know
would like to ask, so let's maybe open up to some questions. We have 15 people on here. You guys joined here for a reason today. So throw out some questions that you have for John, and let's try to get those answered, because it might be things that the others of you are thinking and you're just not saying it. So you can unmute yourself and just ask, or put in the chat, whatever's easiest, because this is what this is for, you guys. This is to help you, and so we want to make sure we're answering your questions.
I got a question. All right, so I know that the standard rule, if you were, is that 70, was it? I forget what it's called, but like basically it's like a 70% rule about the value and what you should be paying versus the amount you think you'll also have to put into the house to get it to that sell point. Now, but the problem is in our market, the prices are so inflated and so much higher, that equation doesn't really pan out very well. Now, granted, because you're working with higher costs for the housing, you don't need to have those balances the way they are. Am I making sense here? I think you should understand what I'm talking about.
You are, and I can restate it for you. I think what you're referring to is the standard offer formula that you hear out there, which is essentially take the ARV, which is after repair value of the house, reduce it by a third, and then also reduce it by the amount of repairs that are necessary to get to ARV, and that's your offer. I mean, that's the standard, model.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
that's thrown into, like, I mean, I've listened to Bigger Pockets, and my whole thing is all of their strategies work in tiny towns in Tennessee, like, but they don't work in Northern Virginia because Virginia is more pricey place, and just the cost to get things done here is much more expensive. So how do you square that box?
Sure. Everything, you have to know your neighborhoods and what works. And for instance, at the Alexandria Real Estate Association, we did a thing on house hacking recently, and one of the it's one of the plays that you can really do really well in Northern Virginia. And I'm just mentioning that because it works, because you can get, if you house hack, you can get appreciation, because that's in Northern Virginia, and then you can also get cash flow. Otherwise, I mean, you're not getting cash flow in a Northern Virginia Center Hall Colonial around here unless you got it, greatly reduced. There is a play, and again, things to think about. I wanted to add this. I think it's a big caveat. Know yourself. If you're a former construction foreman, absolutely dive headfirst into fix and flip. But if you're not, and you're not really the person who people consider the project manager, or somebody that dots their I's and cross their T's, maybe your better skill is negotiating or finance or all the little hats you got to wear, big hats actually. When you come up to think about wholesaling, and I think everybody knows what that is, where you're selling your interest in a property and you hand it off to somebody who does have the real construction chops, and you make your profit, or limit yourself to the cosmetic fix and flips. Maybe you get in there and it's carpet paint and some appliances, that type of thing. But you need to be wary, and I see it all the time. You get a very, the power couple living in Falls Church, and they decide they're going to do the fix and flip, and they've got 2 kids, and they're doing a fix and flip in Hyattsville. Well, I mean, at rush hour, that's a couple hours away, and you've got to be on top of your project, and they're not usually running crews. And I can tell you at Honeydew today, maybe everyone shows up perfectly on time at our company, but for everyone else, and I say that facetiously, it's hard to run these things. There's a lot of moving parts. Don't take for granted what the project management and the construction is. I mean, I know to you fellow real estate or you real estate agents, you have a lot of people that take for granted what you do. I mean, everybody thinks it's so easy. Just okay, go get your real estate license and the gold flows, right? But they don't understand all of the back and forth and the considerations and all the hats you have to wear and the time that goes into being a real estate agent and a good one. It's the same thing. You're just adding another hat to your repertoire when you go into construction. You're doing fix and flip. Now, I don't mean to scare you away. There's a way to do it, but consider partnering up, considering crawling, walk, then run. And by that is, I see it again all the time. Don't don't take on the house that needs to be ripped down to its studs on the first deal. Don't do that. Don't take on the big, oh, I've got a great deal on some land. We're going to build 10 townhouses. Have you ever built any townhouses before? No, but it's a great no. Pass on that. Or partner up. There are people out there. Reach out, build your networks. The formulas, Brian. It's a formula. It's on your dashboard. It should be should be numbers that you consider. That doesn't mean you shouldn't substitute your knowledge. You do this for a living. You shouldn't substitute your knowledge of particular neighborhoods and particular areas for anybody. I imagine there's some places in the DMV that you could take me that exactly how much they sold for when and how and what all the details of the transaction. And all I'd suggest is you put that to work. You find the distressed property in these areas that so that you can move with certainty. Exactly. I mean, you'll know it when you see it. You know exactly what that thing is going to cost and how much it's going to go for. And you just have to answer the known unknown question, which is, hey, somebody give me a real idea of how much and how long this is going to take to get done.
John,
and I do want, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Another question.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Brian, let us know if
Yeah.
we answered yours. The inventory is low in the market now. Where is the best place to find distressed properties? So that was
out in the community. There is always, you got a network. I mean, we at my company, Krista and Cam and David and the people on the team that we work with, we all have a big sign above our computers that says, if you have time to breathe, you have time to network. And it's getting out there in the churches, in the schools, with the healthcare providers, with the senior care, with the estate attorneys, with the accountants, everybody talking real estate. You're talking real estate, and you're talking about providing avenues for people that are in distress to buy houses fast, and that's how it comes.
so
There are other ways. I mean, to market and do things. And that's websites and mail and all the traditional ways. But a lot of it is just being out there, building that community. After you've been doing it for a while, you have just a group of people out there, community that knows that, hey, my friend's in a situation. They got to get rid of their house. It's got some problems with the house. I know somebody who can at least point us in the right direction. I mean, you can't do every deal, but you'd be helpful. But yeah, it's about their networking and getting out there at the very least and telling people you're open for business.
do you think sometimes the for sale by owners, because they obviously don't want to pay the commission, like, what are your thoughts on FSBOs?
I think there are a number of things. I think real estate agents who do that can get some good listings. I know one real estate agent team, very good team, that tells people how to sell their houses by themselves if they'd like. And the answer becomes, for most people, being a real estate agent isn't as easy as we thought, is it? Selling your own house isn't as easy as you thought. I know Honeydew today. We put stuff out there, again, shameless plug, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put information out there about how to do the repairs yourself. Here's our hacks. Here's what we do. We know that 98% of the people are going to go, that's nice. That's a really good idea. Now, can you come repair it? Because I don't have the tools at the time. And again, I think it's the for sale by owner. Anything's possible, but I think it's better for just getting listings. I don't think you're going to get the investment stuff. That's just I mean, I've gotten lists. I have gotten them for sale by owner. I've gotten it that way. I've gotten good deals. I've been doing this long enough. I've gotten good deals in every situation. But the real thing is getting those people that just need to sell their house and they want to do it quietly. Oftentimes they're in embarrassing situations. You got to be a little bit, you got to be a bit of a social worker. You got to solve some problems for them. You got to make some introductions. I mean, you're really in a lot of ways a social worker. People, they just want to save face. They want to get some money and get out of their situation, get a fresh start. And they need somebody who, without a lot of drama, inspections and listings and work at their house, can give them cash and they can go away. And that's my experience when it comes to distress.
And just to circle back, you did mention something about with the hard money lending that having an LLC is that something like a good first step to take, is like opening up a business so that,
Yeah,
you have a legitimate business?
sure. Let me say this, and again, we do have some people on the call like David Whiting that can get into the nuts and bolts on this, but I can tell you that there's not going to be a hard money lender who's legitimate that's not going to require the loan go to an LLC. And even further, they're going to require that it be what's called a special purpose vehicle LLC, which is really just a name for it. And that LLC has to have owned nothing than just whatever property it is we're doing. And that means, for instance, if we're doing a property at 123 Elm Street, we can do it online. It takes a few minutes. It's $100. We have good attorneys who could do the operating agreement, things like that, form the LLC for us. But there are other ways. It's not the most. Some of it's not the most complicated. But it's a matter of we will form an LLC that says 123 Elm Street, and if we're holding it, it'll be 123 Elm Street Holdings, or if we're going to fix and flip it, it's 123 Elm Street Ventures. Just helps us keep it straight. But it's got to be in the name of an LLC, or else we're not getting the money, or we're not giving the money, because we don't do owner occupied, and it's got to be very clearly labeled as a investment commercial transaction. We're not doing commercial. We're not doing consumer lending. It's not. This is business lending.
Okay. And then Mark, you want to go? You had a question for John.
Yeah, John. So when you're looking at multiple properties, because that's kind of the model you're building out your real estate empire, and you're going to have properties in different places. When you set those LLCs up, do you do one for each property so it's independently an LLC so you can
Correct
your risk across your empire?
Yep. And it's no different than, say, I mean, if you're running a taxi cab company, you see oftentimes every taxi cab is separately incorporated. A lot of times people incorporate their boat. It's shifting liability, but you got to realize that it works from both ways. You really got to understand the process from front to back. And one of the things is, as a lender, I want to make sure the money that I'm lending is not contaminated by other things. And I don't want to get somehow my collateral, tied up with, some other thing that this LLC is doing or has been doing, or, who knows what liability is. I want to be able to look and go, well, this thing was formed yesterday. The name of the LLC is named after the property that's being acquired. There's no other liability there. That's all this is. And then I can make my own judgment on whether to lend, or our lenders committee can do it and we lend the money. But we know there's not, we have a first trust. We want to be in a first trust position and lend the money, and, want everybody to do what they said they're going to do and agreed to do.
Because we see a number of our clients that have multiple rental properties, especially now with the Airbnb, model that's kind of taken off, that they all keep them under themselves. We're trying to counsel them to make sure that, each one of those is an individual box in its own right. It lives and dies by itself.
Well, that's a conversation for David Whiting a little bit more. That you're getting into the sticks a little bit, and that's a whole universe, and you could spend a career on, again, the different. It does get complicated with the taxation and the liability. We're talking here today about the basic fix and flip, or the basic buy and hold, and each property in itself is valuable, and I'm not saying there wouldn't be ways that you could get efficiencies, and insurance also helps to limit liability, but in general, people want to see a sole source, a special purpose,
Right.
LLC.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much for those of you that requested some questions. Nope. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining Realtor Power Hour. If you did enroll online in Eventbrite, we have your email address and we can send a follow-up email to you. If you just hopped on and you would like to get the follow-up recording as well as the information, please just put your email in the chat and I will make sure that this gets the follow-up email gets sent to you. So again, thank you so much. We do Realtor Power Hour the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. Our next one is actually going to be going over ways to brand yourself. And I have Karen, she does customs, Karen Images. So she's going to be talking about how do you brand yourself and stay top of mind with what type of products that you leave as a leave behind, or how do you, I'm sure you have your honeydew to a shirt on, right? Don't you, John?
All the time.
But yeah, so anyway, I would love to see you guys again, but thank you again, John, so much for your information. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate you all, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I put my information in the chat as well as John had his earlier on, so let me see if I can copy and paste that. But anybody else have any questions before we head out? We're a little early today.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Great education today.
Thanks, guys.
All right, I'm going to put John's information right here too, right now. So. Oops, that went to Mark. All right, guys, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. And like I said, if you have any questions, Universal Title does work with investors all the time. We can do quick closes, and we would love the opportunity to get you the closing table. So thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
day.
Have a good week.
Bye.